Food.
And some
Yeah.
other products.
Basically all kinds of food.
Water bottles.
We have water bottles already here, right here. So I'll give you a hint for this, another small space in the house that some of us may or may not, some of us may not also have, but many people have. And this is a space where when my grandmother would get up, she would take a bath, and this is the first space she would go to.
Ma'am, shower.
After taking her bath, this is the first place she would go to.
Ma'am, the worship room, temple.
The worship.
Ma'am, temple.
Space.
Ma'am, the saunas.
Worship room. Religious spaces.
Ma'am, there are some kunds also in the religious places.
Yeah. So I think I'll well, they're different from ponds. So I'll say kunds right here. So basically this goes all the way from a small thing that you may have in your worship room in the home to a larger kund. If you or sometimes it could be just some taps where you're washing your face.
Ma'am, hand pump.
Sorry?
Hand pump.
I'm not able to understand. Hand something?
Hand
Hand pump.
Hand pump, she says.
Hand pumps. Yeah.
Ma'am, saunas. Ma'am, also leaks, pipe leakages.
So I will put leakages as a separate one, but it's largely pipe, or maybe put it along with the pipes. Yeah.
Some saunas are also there.
I wrote that. Anything else?
Some leave.
Sorry. What was the last one?
Ma'am, dams.
Yeah, so that's the reservoir that we have written, no? Because the dams create these artificial lakes. So I'll add it here. Okay.
Radiators, cars, truck, bus, radiator.
Yes. Vehicles, radiator.
Ma'am, in the batteries of the electricity batteries which are used in home.
Some of the batteries, okay. Yeah.
Ma'am, inverters. Ma'am, the inverter water is required to charge it.
Okay. I don't know.
So,
Ma'am, in earthen pots, we have water in earthen pots.
Ma'am, canal.
So earthen pots, I don't think we have covered it earlier, so I will write it separately.
Ma'am, the canals.
Canals, yes.
a quick question about the water that goes into a battery for your inverter. Is that any kind of water? Will any kind of water do?
Drilled water. Ma'am, the car engine.
What kind of water?
Drilled water. It is distilled water.
Distilled water. Very good. But what does that mean? What does distilled water mean? How do you get distilled water?
So the water is first boiled and then condensed.
Okay.
Luxembourg's condenser.
Okay. And why do we do that?
To separate two
Try to
liquids
remove
without
the
mixing
impurities.
one of them.
Yeah, to separate
So to separate impurities.
impurities, right?
To separate contaminants.
Right. So any kind of
From
liquid,
fresh
anything solid, right? Anything that's solid, that's not actually dissolved in the water, that stays behind when you boil it, right? And the water evaporates, and then you cool it down and it condenses and becomes liquid again. So you leave all the other stuff behind and you get basically pure water, right? That's what
Yes,
distilled
sir.
water is. Very good.
So I think someone wanted to add something else to the list. I could hear.
Ma'am, in car bonnet also used.
So the car bonnet, you have the radiators in that where you put the water to
Yeah.
cool the engine. Yeah, so they're there in all the vehicles. Yeah, that is that. So let's move on. And if
Yeah.
you all, if any of you, okay, there are some springs. Yes, someone had said springs, and I was thinking I will write it, and then I forgot.
Right. Springs.
It can be hot springs or also regular springs. There are
Yeah.
lagoons on the chat I'm seeing.
And then what about those that just come
Ma'am, delta.
spouting out of the ground?
Yeah,
And
delta
we can use water fountains.
Fountains.
fountains. Yes. So what kind of fountains are there?
Ma'am, waterfalls.
Didn't we already
Yeah.
cover it?
Yeah, we got that. That's up here
That's here.
on
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
second. And we also got delta. Delta is also here.
Delta is also there.
Yeah.
And taps.
We got taps also.
Taps is there. I think.
Taps is right there.
Yeah. I'm just quickly checking the
In
messages.
the first column, we have taps.
Soil. Yeah. Somebody had said soil.
Ma'am, melting of
In
snow.
In medicine,
yeah.
Snow melt.
in
Sorry?
medicine,
In
in
medicine.
medicine, like
refrigerators.
syrup, drop,
Medicine, I would also say, since you're mentioning medicine,
syrups,
okay.
etc. Injection.
We'll keep it as medicines. Okay. Yes.
Ma'am, melting of snow.
So melting of snow is what happens when the snow melts? Where does it go? Where does the water go? You can look at whatever we have here, and the water goes into something that is already here.
Ma'am, in the rivers and the oceans.
So most of the snow that is so if snow is melting,
Glaciers.
actually many a times they form streams. So let's
Ma'am,
call
tributaries.
streams which often form tributaries to rivers. They may very often they do, but they may not always. So sometimes the snow that melts goes and forms a stream. Sometimes the glaciers melt directly to
Ma'am,
form
wetland.
wetland. Yes, okay. So that's
Ma'am, these sprays which are used to clean our glass.
So maybe I would club them with all medicines and soaps and
Ma'am,
those kind of usable.
Type.
Sorry?
Ma'am, choline.
Holy, yes. Let me put it here. Celebration, that's how we and it is not just Holi. What other festivals, in which other festivals is water important? I think in Muharram,
Yes, in the form of sharbat.
in the form of sharbat. So Holi, Muharram, so different kinds of. So basically, I'll club it under celebrations, no? And any other celebration that one remembers.
Ma'am, icebergs.
Icebergs, yes.
Ma'am,
Let's put it closer to glaciers and polar ice, icebergs.
Ma'am, vapors. Ma'am, ice
Vapors are
caps.
done. Vapors are here. So polar ice is basically ice caps, yeah. So yeah, which is basically the ice on the mountains also. So it's sort of covered.
Durga Puja is a very important celebration for
Durga Puja,
for immersing, and so is Ganesh Chaturthi
Ganesh
here in Pune, where we both are.
Ma'am, Shivratri.
Yeah. So basically, a lot of these. Sorry.
Ma'am, Holi.
We already have Holi.
Yeah. Holi was the first one.
Sleet.
Sorry.
Ma'am, sleet.
Sleet. I'll put it.
Hail, in the form of
Sleet,
hail, we have
yes,
hailstorms.
different types of precipitation. Yeah.
Precipitation. So actually, I'll put it as precipitation.
Yeah.
Ice cube.
Sorry, what was the last one?
Ma'am, tube wells.
That is already covered.
Yeah, we got tubers
Ma'am, ice cube.
in the second
Ice
column.
cubes. Yeah.
Ice cube.
Okay, let me put
Yes.
that in. Let's put it somewhere here. Okay. What else?
Spring water.
Spring, we added springs. Yeah. What or other?
Olenes, sanitizers.
Sanitizers, yeah. So basically, I've just clubbed all of that: sprays, soaps, medicine into like a one single. So I think it would go under the same. But yeah, it was an important part of sanitation during COVID. So yeah.
Wow, we've got 3 columns and filled up the entire page.
Yeah.
Chemicals.
I'm quite
Sorry, yeah,
blown
chemicals.
away.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, me too.
Quicksand.
Ma'am, in the thermometers,
Thermometers have mercury,
And the newer ones have alcohol.
and the newer ones have alcohol.
Yeah.
Sure, sure.
The ones we use in chemistry labs now, they
Uh-huh.
phased out the mercury ones because they're a little bit dangerous.
Yeah.
Break them,
Ma'am,
mercury is
scientists
quite
also.
toxic.
Yes. Thank you, being a scientist. And I was listening to all the conversation on distilled water, and I was wondering, is anybody going to bring up scientists use a ton of water because they use
ma'am, the
let's just
fertilizers.
call it, I will put it here and let's just call it experimentation. And basically it is kind of a livelihood. Are there any other livelihoods that
Ma'am,
that
ma'am.
Industry also ma'am, it is also ma'am, it is also said that there is more water on moon.
so exoplanetary water? Yeah.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Car
Ma'am, the
industries also
fertilizers.
use water.
Ma'am, when the rockets are launched, then also water is used so that sound production is less.
Right. So it's a vehicle. But I've also put it under, it could go under scientists or experimentalists, let's say. Yeah.
Ma'am, fire brigade.
Pesticides.
Fire brigade.
Pesticides.
So I think pesticides could go here under chemicals. Yeah.
Ma'am, the testing of nuclear is also done in the water.
Ma'am, fire brigade.
Yeah, fire brigade. So that can go under livelihoods, I think. So I don't know if you notice, but I find myself clubbing, right? Which I think is quite interesting. I'm also trying to fit everything on the same page, but anyway, but there is also
Right.
clubbing of that you could actually club a lot of these things into different types, and this is what I was saying, that there is a there's so many waters around you. So I'm glad that together we are able to come up with so many. Maybe I should just put it like, later I'll put it as, I'll give numbers to this and we will see how many we were able to list. It's clearly over 30, 40. So livelihoods, any of the livelihoods associated with water? This is a slightly different question, but yeah. Washing, cleaning. So maybe
Cooking.
you know what? I will take this in a completely separate page, because I think it's a question I was not thinking of asking, but since it has come up, let's just let's just put it on a separate page altogether. Okay. We're doing water and livelihoods. So we'll spend a little bit of time here because we also have to move on. So experimentalists here, I think we can put rocket science as well. Someone said rocket science. Sorry?
Sanitation.
Sanitation.
Ma'am, farmers also use in
Ma'am,
irrigation.
agriculture leaders.
So farmers, agriculture will come in the same one.
Ma'am, cooking.
Pisciculture.
Chefs.
Ma'am, landowners.
Washing clothes.
Washing didn't come. Okay, I think I'll
Washing, cleanings.
Ma'am, cooking. Cooking.
Pisciculture.
Pisciculture.
Pisciculture. Something is wrong here. Okay. Sanitation. One livelihood that heavily depends on nature.
Ma'am, bathing.
Okay, we're
Brick
talking about
making.
livelihoods. Livelihoods means someone who goes and makes their living, earns their income by
Ma'am,
doing,
brick making.
Mama nursery owner.
yeah. So
Manufacturing.
manufacturing.
Mama nursery owner.
Ma'am,
So I would put that here. It's not really. So I'll just say nurseries, right? Okay.
Ma'am, in constructions and salons.
Ma'am, zoos.
Sorry, what? Zoos? Did someone say zoos?
ma'am, in
Ma'am,
photosynthesis.
brick making.
Yeah, well, I'll add that to constructions. I think Vrinda is trying to say something. Vrinda, please
Ma'am,
finish.
photosynthesis.
So it's not a livelihood in the sense. So I've written plants, tomato, and it's a process. Photosynthesis is a process that happens in plants. However, we're talking about
Ma'am, painting.
livelihoods here. Yeah.
Art, painting.
So art. Yeah.
Ma'am, hydropower. Ma'am, generating of electricity.
Ma'am,
Electricity. Yeah. Somebody said hydroelectricity and generating electricity. Hydroelectricity, people who work in, come on.
Ma'am, tidal and tidal energy.
pottery.
So hydroelectricity, basically using different methods. So we're not listing the methods here. Don't raise your arms, just keep talking.
And
I'll just-
salons,
Ma'am,
salons,
pottery.
water is used.
Salons.
Ma'am, in
Okay.
pottery.
What?
Ma'am, pottery.
Pottery. So art, in art I will put painting, pottery, right? So artists basically. Come on, there is one very important one missing. It's very, very, of course, it's very far from where you all are. It's something to do with eating.
Transportation.
Transportation. I'm going to make it in manufacturing and transportation.
Ma'am, brewing beer.
So I think I'll put it under cafes and salons and all these places. Yeah.
Ma'am, rearing of livestock.
Livestock. Very nice.
Ma'am, we also need water to drink.
So,
Ma'am, fishing.
so that is here. Huh? Your glass of water is what you need to drink.
Ma'am, fishing.
Yeah, thank you. And at this we will stop. You all can add.
I was waiting for that one.
Yeah, me too. that fishing is equal to close. The only reason is we move on to the next question. This is only in the interest of time. But I hope you're able to appreciate how many things, how many aspects of your life, and how many different kinds of your life are related to water, or have where water plays a role. And we each of us could think of 1, 2, 5, but coming together, we are able to collaborate. We are able to collaborate and make this huge database. Yeah.
Ma'am, timber industry.
So that'll come in construction. I would keep that in construction. It's a different kind of construction. Yeah.
Rearing of fishing means pisciculture only.
So pisciculture is here. Fishing, actually going out into this ocean to fish, is what we were talking about. So I'll move on.
Navy.
There are more questions. So there are more questions. Don't worry.
Promotes weights loss.
Sorry, what?
Promotes weights loss.
I don't think Darab, are you able to understand?
You mean, are you talking about weight loss? When you're trying to lose weight, is that what you mean? I'm not sure. I didn't hear that properly.
Yeah, I think
But
there's
I think
something
you're
with
talking
connection.
about weight loss. Is that what you're
Ma'am,
Is that what you meant?
Okay,
ma'am, ice cream sellers.
ice cream. I think I'll
Ma'am,
add
sweat.
the food because there are different kinds of food and beverages. Yeah. So
Ma'am,
I'm
sweat.
gonna add- Sorry, what?
Sweat.
Sweat. Let's add this here. Sweat is a good one. Yeah.
Water park. Water park.
And tears.
Water parks. Water parks. Okay. Water parks, indeed.
Ma'am, tears.
Tears. Okay. So let me add it with the sweat. Where was sweat? Here. Okay. So what I would tell now everybody is if you have any more ideas for answering this, you add it to the chat. Before we end the session, we'll come back and refill with any of the ideas that we have missed. We'll look at the chat and we'll refill. Okay. But for now, in the interest of time, we will move on. Because there's a lot more.
One very quick clarification between pisciculture and fishing. See, pisciculture is when you basically when you raise fish in a confined area like a tank, or you make the pond and you raise the fish there, and you control all the conditions. And fishing is where you go out and you actually catch fish, wild fish. So it could be in a river, it could be from a lake, or it could be from an ocean. But it's not that you're raising those fish. Those fish are there naturally, and you go and catch them. So that's what we call fishing. When you raise fish under controlled conditions in a confined space so they can't escape, that's called, rearing, exactly. That's what we call pisciculture.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, sure.
So let's move on to the next question. And this is, well, let's see how successful I'm in writing when it comes to it. Now we have listed all these waters around us. Now we will try and identify what aspects or issues are there with related to all these different waters, or some of these the different waters that we think need to be, that we observe, right? And that might need an intervention. Yeah. So I've just written a couple of examples. One is putting up to water, because water is a human right. Water is a natural resource. But we put a cost to water. Yeah. So is that an issue? Is it not an issue? Does it need an intervention? Does it need controlling? What is it? How do we think? Well, we're just going to write. We're just going to say what sort of issues are there. Yeah. And then
scarcity of water.
Scarcity. Okay.
Ma'am, groundwater depletion.
Groundwater depletion.
And pollution of
The
water.
increase in evaporation.
So formation of what?
And pollution of water.
Pollution.
Ma'am, increase
Acid
in
rainfall.
evaporation.
Contamination of water. Ma'am, acid rain.
of water.
Yeah, so I think contamination, pollution will sort of keep them as synonymous.
Ma'am, the evaporation is also a major cause.
Of what?
Ma'am, like if evaporation is increasing, so the groundwater will also less.
Then the water only evaporates, but the precipitation and condensation is less, then also it becomes a problem.
Ma'am, deforestation is also.
Ma'am, the overuse of dynamite for the development of the country.
Ma'am, overuse of fertilizers and chemicals, pesticides.
So those lead to what? So I think this is something we have to think a little bit more in terms of, so for example, someone talked about dynamite and something else, right? What?
Ma'am, the overuse of dynamite in the development of country.
So I would see this as where do you use the dynamite? So you use the dynamite in construction, and use the dynamite in mining. And both
Ma'am,
these cases,
dehydration.
yeah, just let me finish. Sorry, because this one for each one we'll think a little bit deeper. Yeah. So both we use dynamite for two things. I'm saying here, construction and for mining. So I'm going to write, and mining is mining and construction. These are two things that require a lot of water. And but the question also is that, so what you're saying is probably excessive mining.
Ma'am, climate change.
Ma'am, improper farmer technique. Ma'am, dehydration.
So dehydration is a health issue.
Ma'am, deforestation.
We'll talk about the
Deforestation.
what else?
Waterborne diseases.
Sorry?
Ma'am, shortage of water.
Shortage. So we've done water scarcity here. I'll just put scarcity is there. The scarcity is similar to shortage. Yeah. So yeah, I think I missed some of the answers. Can you
Climate change.
climate. So effect on the climate. So we're going to look at evaporation and we're going to look at climate. So what evaporation does is,
Ma'am, water supply.
yeah, can I just finish we'll go a little slower on this. Yeah. So hold that thought, hold your ideas, and we'll come one by one. So when we talk about evaporation, and we're going to talk about evaporation and climate change a little bit together and see how we can find what is the issue, because we want to find out what is the issue. We want to try articulating what is the issue. Now, evaporation is what puts water that is there on land into the atmosphere, right? What is this? This is a part of the water cycle, right? And water cycle also forms a part of defining your weather and eventually also defining your climate, right? So, so in a way, these. So I'm trying to show you how these ideas are linked, right? So try and understand. If you say evaporation, what does it mean? So how does it become an issue? The evaporation has to change. What makes evaporation change? The amount of water on land, if that changes, the evaporation in an area will change, right? Now, I'm going to just give out answers here in the interest of time. One of the ways to change the evaporation that is happening in an area is to make a dam. If you make a large dam that makes a large lake, the evaporation from that area increases.
Ma'am, dying of fish in ponds and canals and rivers due to chemicals.
Yeah,
Dying of fish.
I'll come to that. I'll come to that. So
okay.
So that is so I'm going to write this as change in water cycle and not just evaporation. Evaporation is a part of it. You can, when you want to speak about it, you can, but different parts of water cycle, precipitation can change, evaporation can change, and it can affect the weather as well as the climate. So this is a very complex thought, and if you think about it, you have to be careful in what you're thinking. It's not a one sentence answer. It's not a one word answer anymore. So someone said, did you say chemicals in the lakes and ponds? Was that something that was said just now?
Dying of fish, ma'am. Dying of fish.
So loss of biodiversity. Yeah, I'm just going to put some bigger, because it's not just the fish, right? How many? Then one would want to see, is it only the fishes that are dying, or what kind of animals? How many kinds of animals?
Ma'am, global warming.
Sedimentation.
Sedimentation. What does sedimentation do? It changes the level. It changes the bottom of your river, and the rivers flow differently, for example. Or if it's an estuary, the base of the estuary changes, the biodiversity at the bottom of the estuary changes, at the bottom of the river changes, that changes the other dynamics, right? So we're going to, so we will start with an idea.
Ma'am, eutrophication.
Ma'am, water stress.
Sorry.
Eutrophication.
Eutrophication. Yeah, okay, we can put this.
Increase human consumption.
Ma'am, landscape changes. Ma'am, urban growth. Urban growth.
These are how is urban growth related to water? How will
Growing
we?
population. I'm growing population.
What happens?
And if growing population, they need a lot of water.
Ma'am, yes, ma'am, they need a lot of water.
Not only for domestic use, but also for growing more crops and food. They will need a lot of food.
Okay. So what happens? You have a scarcity or the shortage.
Ma'am, drying up of water resources.
Ma'am, eutrophication.
Eutrophication is, I think I've eutrophication, yeah.
Ma'am, ancient irrigation techniques which waste a lot of water.
So what's the issue? Wasting water?
Wasting water, water wastage.
Waste. That's that.
Ma'am,
What else?
waterborne
Issue.
diseases.
So health impacts.
Ma'am, water stress. Ma'am, damming for hydroelectricity.
What's the issue with hydroelectricity? There are many issues. So which issue, which in hydroelectricity, what is the issue? What requires, what do you need to change? That's what you want to find out. So in health impact, you also have waterborne diseases, for example. That's something.
Impact on aquatic animals.
Ma'am, water stress.
So let's say loss or change.
Ma'am, reduced sediment supply to the downstream. Ma'am, water stress.
So let's say downstream, I can't remember what it's actually called, but downstream,
we can just call it downstream effects.
Effects, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Natural calamities like floods.
So like floods, yeah.
Ma'am,
Floods,
drying up of water sources.
drought, yeah. Okay. Now that's
Ma'am, tsunami. Ma'am, water stress.
Ma'am, drought.
Ma'am, water stress.
Cloudburst.
the water stress is waste, scarcity and shortage, right? It's the same.
Soil erosion.
Could be water pollution.
Displacement of local residents and wildlife.
Okay. So
Ma'am, deforestation.
so what about what is deforestation? Is it an issue that is related to water? How is it related to water? What is the issue?
Ma'am, it's very related to water, as when deforestation is there. So the trees used to give water to the ground, and it will
Ma'am,
storms. Water. And if trees would not be there, so soil would not get time so that they could absorb the water.
Okay, so what we'll call it is
Ma'am, landslides. Ma'am, storms. Ma'am, landslides.
decrease in percolation due to change in land cover.
Ma'am, landslides.
Ma'am, desalination.
Ma'am, storms.
I write it next to tsunami, drought. Maybe I should make a separate for this one. Oops, sorry. I don't know what I did. Tsunami, and someone said storm. So these storms could be cyclones. Yeah, that's the term.
Ma'am, heat waves.
So heat wave is a
Ma'am, hydropower produce CO2 gas.
so heat waves is it's the effect of, so actually the issue with heat, just saying heat waves, is that it's because you have a very hot period along with high humidity, you have effect on health.
So
Right.
these are all really maybe, extreme weather events which are very much climate change related.
So
That includes the heat waves, droughts.
So let's just say extreme weather
storms.
events.
Yeah, and that would include the heat waves.
Yeah.
And it would include the storms, hurricanes, cyclones. And also what we call cloudbursts. In Uttarakhand, that's a favorite term. when the western disturbance meets the monsoon system, and the two become they combine and become like a superstorm. Those are called cloudbursts, like what happened in 2013 in the Kedarnath Valley.
Anything else? I hope you're able
water related conflict.
Ma'am,
conflict. Okay, what kind of conflict? What kind of
Water
conflict?
related, like fighting for water.
Ma'am,
Who is fighting for water? Let's try to. Who's fighting? Who in your that you want to specifically raise that issue here?
Ma'am, may I tell?
Fighting for water.
Sorry,
People,
I'm not able to hear. Who's fighting for water?
like two countries.
Two countries. Yeah. So what happens is what this I'm not sure I can't see on my screen who's speaking.
Ma'am, lightning.
Yeah, 1 second, I'll come to that. But let's talk about two
Erosion.
countries. 1 second. Two countries fighting about water is what someone mentioned, and these are called cross-boundary conflicts. So this can happen when it's the same water body, like a river, when it flows through different states or different countries. Who has the right to use the water, and how much water can they use? So these things are clubbed under what is called as cross-boundary conflicts. So we're just going to write that here.
Ma'am, fracking.
So fracking.
Erosion.
So you know what? I don't want to hear phrases any longer. Give me sentences.
Ma'am, fracking is a process in which the chemicals are released in the existing wells and ponds just to unlock the natural gases and oil.
So what happens because of that?
Ma'am, if they release chemicals into existing wells, then the people who are using the well will get diseases because of the chemicals.
It is water pollution.
Yes, ma'am.
So fracking leads to water pollution. So
Animals are the ones.
I'm just not adding it here, but you are right. And when you actually talk about this, it's important to understand, okay, fracking is an issue and the effect of that is, so we're talking about issues. It's very jumbled up. We have to start. Hurricanes, I'm just going to write it in extreme. Yeah, so someone else was also saying something.
And drying up of water resources due to global warming.
River what?
And drying up of rivers due to global warming.
हो गया ना, drought is done, and
conflict between people.
Okay, so sorry. Okay, one of you and then the next one.
Ma'am, there can
system can also make the contaminated water flow into the rivers, and this can cause water pollution.
It can cause what? Water
Pollution.
pollution. Okay. Yeah.
So
That's
releasing water, contaminated water into the river.
Ma'am, increasing industrialization and urbanization.
Okay. And then what does it do?
Ma'am, erosion. It led to the widespread water pollution and contaminating.
Okay, so I will write increasing urbanization because it's a very, very broad term. But eventually it is causing scarcity, and it is causing. So I'm going to write it here.
Contaminating rivers and groundwater, and ma'am, it's unsafe for our consumption.
Yeah. So it's unsafe because it's contaminated.
May I make one request here? What's happening is that both Shabi and I are finding it difficult to hear some of you because you're not allowing the person who is saying something to finish before you say something. Okay, so can we just impose one rule here, that wait for the person to stop talking before you say something? Okay, let's not have 2 or 3 people talking at the same time, because it's very confusing for both Chavi and I. Okay, so we would appreciate your consideration on that. So even when Chavi is talking, wait for her to finish saying what she's saying and then add your point. Okay, thanks.
So someone said soil erosion a few times. Dara, where do you think we should put soil?
Soil erosion. Yeah, that I think is a separate. Well, it kind of goes along with floods, downstream effects. But I think it deserves a
separate, no?
yeah. I think so.
I think someone said it a few times, and I
Yeah.
want to address it, but
Yeah.
Can you say that again?
Ma'am, thunderstorm.
Thunderstorm.
We have. I think we'll keep this as extreme weather events, because I'm sure thunderstorms are a part of cloudbursts and storms and hurricanes.
Remember now, what we're interested in is focusing on issues or problems related to water that you observe that need an intervention, right? Now, per se, there's not a lot that you and I can do to prevent thunderstorms. But yes, if thunderstorms are maybe becoming very common and they're causing a lot of damage, then maybe what we need to look at is how we can minimize the damage, because we know that thunderstorms are going to keep happening, and that's because somebody mentioned climate change, right? And that's a huge topic in itself. But extreme weather events are one of the major effects of climate change, which is affecting millions of people all over the world. So it's a global problem, right? But we would like you to also kind of try and kind of zoom in on your area and kind of build up a mental picture of where your school is and where you stay, your locality, your part of the city, and start thinking about what kinds of issues, what kind of problems do you see around you, where you live, where your school is, that actually need an intervention. Okay, so that means it automatically kind of limits some of the things that we can put here, because, for example, landslides probably is not something that you're going to be able to solve over a 2-week period, right? And is that actually a local issue? Is that something that's affecting you or your school or your city? Or maybe you're talking about landslides because your native place where you come from, maybe they are suffering from landslides. So that's a valid point. But I'm guessing that all the schools that are represented here today are all in Udham Singh Nagar district. Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And how many out of, there's 12 schools represented here at this meeting today?
Sir, DAV Public School.
Yeah.
Sir, Chhaoni Children's Academy.
Sai Public School.
Okay.
I think the little scholars team can answer the number of schools. Are there 12 schools today here?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah,
Okay.
All right.
And they're all in Udham Singh Nagar district?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And how many in Kashipur and how many in other places other than Kashipur?
Sir, DAV Public School is in Bajpur.
Okay.
Sir, the Gurukul Foundation is in Kashipur.
Okay.
The Chhaoni Children's Academy is also in Kashipur.
Okay.
Sir, the Republic is also in Kashipur.
Okay.
Vision Valley School is also
So
in
several of
Kashipur.
the schools are from Kashipur, and there's at least one from Bhajpur, which is
Sir,
close by.
Sridhar School from Bajpur.
Okay.
So I
Okay.
think,
Thank you. Thank you for clarifying.
Darab, I think, so there's one more from the chat that I added, that is water stagnation. And I think we can close this conversation here. The idea was to sort of brainstorm this together. And like Dara mentioned, going from a generic idea because even loss of fish, I can't go into the ocean and fish also is an issue, but it is not local to you all, because none of you are really, maybe you're going to the river to fish. If that is the case, sure. But if you're not fishing in the ocean, then that is not something that is local to you. So there are many, many issues. So the idea here is to understand what is the reason, what are the issues, how do I articulate it into actually saying what is the issue, and then identifying what aspect of this is local to us. And that is what will go into the competition part of it. So this is an example to have a generic exercise, a more general exercise. And then slowly, now we move on to what is it that you will do in this competition. We have only half an hour. So we'll move on from here. Any more ideas that you get, put it in the chat, please.
Ma'am, I have.
In the chat, put it in the chat so that we can move forward. And we'll check the chat later to populate this. Okay. So, so the third question that we had was about interventions, about which we will discuss on 23rd September. Today we discussed about where is water around you, and in what ways can you start understanding the aspects and the issues, observing them, reasoning what is local to you and understanding those aspects. So this is the task one that we hope some of you have looked at already, but in case you haven't, you have 2 days to look at it and build on this. So in this, we wanted to look at, go and understand your own local context, whether it's your school or it's your area or it's your society, you pick. And or your respective houses, you pick. So pick, where is this water around you? What aspects or issues related to these waters do you think they need an intervention? An intervention is basically coming in and saying, no, let's do this differently. And why do you want solutions? So yes, it needs a solution, but being able to correctly say why a solution is needed, right? And to very specifically say that in this situation, this is the solution that is. We'll talk about how you will be saying this. Before we go into how you will be doing it, I will just quickly describe the output that we're expecting from you. We will share these slides. You will have these slides with you. But just to quickly talk about what you will do, you will submit a drawing or an illustration. Now, your teams need not have fantastic artists. You will not really be judged on how good your drawing looks, and it's not the aesthetics that we are looking at that you will be judged on, but it's a content. What is it that your drawing is trying to say is what will be important. So, and then we have given a few guidelines to make this drawing that you will that each of the teams will show us on 23rd of at least one draft. This will be your first draft. You will be allowed to edit it after you show it to us. We would like you to use at least a drawing sheet preferably, and at least use an A4 size sheet. You can use bigger, but at least use an A4 sheet. You can use any media, any materials. It can be a collage, it can be a watercolor, it can be a sketch, it can be just line drawing, anything, any style you can use. Do not copy designs from the internet. Be original. This is your idea, your locality. You understand it the best. Try not to put too many labels. Don't make a river and then say, river. So, or make a well and say this is a well. Don't label it. Try as little to label it as possible. In case you use colors, let them represent the reality closely. I'll give you one question with respect to this. Are all your waters blue? They're not always blue, but whenever we draw water, we fill it in with blue color. Is it always blue? Is contaminated water also as blue as non-contaminated water? Is the water in a glass?
No, ma'am.
So yeah, so those are the questions. When you draw this water, try to, if you decide to use colors, then try to use them as closely as possible. But you can also decide not to use colors, and we are fine with that. You can add photographs that you take if during a research, during a site visit. If you take photographs, you can do this as a collage. You can add it into a submission. You can staple it, paste it, get creative. Like I said, this is draft 1. You will be allowed to change this. Okay. This is optional, but we suggest, some of you may want to do this, that in case you're drawing an illustration is not able to answer all of these questions. Ideally, 2 things you should be able to answer, but in case the question why you're not able to answer through your drawing, you may write maximum 100 words. And this also you will submit along with it.
Write paragraph.
100 words paragraph. It is optional. If you don't submit it, if your drawing can cover all 3 questions, great. In case you cannot cover, let's say, the last question, which is the hardest to cover in a drawing, then you can submit 100 words write-up for that. But remember, when you're presenting it to us, you will have 2 minutes. So that will, when you're presenting your drawing to us, you will have only 2 minutes to speak, to tell us where is the water around you and what is it that you want to change and why do you want to change. So presentation is only 2 minutes. 1 drawing, and if you need it, then 100 word paragraph you can use. Okay. And now we'll talk a little bit. We'll sort of try and tell you the process, and I'll actually put this on full screen. Sorry, I didn't realize. And we'll also tell you what is it that you will be marked on. How are we going to give you the marks for it? So Dharak, do you want to take it?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
So we want to actually give you an opportunity to use a process, a logical process that is actually used for designing things. And we felt that this would be a really good fit for us because that's actually what we're doing. You know, we're trying to design a solution to a problem or an issue that we have noticed, and we feel that it requires an intervention. Okay, and so there's something called the design cycle, and we have developed a set of criteria on which we want you to be aware of, that this is what we're looking for in your drawing or illustration and your write-up. Okay, so this design focus, as you can see, it's got 4 sections, and each color, each section is a different color. And you can see Chavi has drawn an arrow right at the top there in the blue section. It says start here, and it says identify and prioritize the research. So that's the part where you're actually trying to identify your water sources, right? And you're trying to zoom in on one that you would like to work on. Okay, so each one of these sections, the first one is called inquiring and analyzing. The second one, which is in yellow, which is on the right, is called developing ideas. Okay, and as you can see, the section in green and the section in red are actually about creating the solution and trying it out and then evaluating how successful it was. And since we only have basically 10 days, we didn't feel that we could go through the entire process. Okay, so we are going to focus just on the inquiring and analyzing part and the developing ideas part. And we're adding one thing to it, and that is reflecting on the process. So basically, stepping back from what you have done and thinking individually about what you've learned from this process. And this is something that, unfortunately, we don't do enough of. There's a lot of important reasons why this is a really important thing to do. I'm not going to get into that right now, but I just want to point out, okay, so the first thing we're starting with is to identify and prioritize the research, right? Because as you saw, you've got pages and pages of things. You need to narrow it down, okay? So you need to identify from all the different kind of water sources and water bodies that you have around you and choose one, okay? And then you have to research it. And like Chavi said, the best way to research a water body is by actually going to it and actually looking at it, taking photographs, talking to people, interviewing people. That's also very important, because if you're worried about people who are suffering because of water scarcity or any other issue, then you need to find out who those people are, right? How are they affected? What have they tried to do about it? What are the obstacles? Why are things not moving forward? Okay, so identify and prioritize the research, and then you can see the arrow pointing to the left. Then you need to explain and justify the need for an intervention, right? And that is where you have to weigh very carefully that is it possible even to make an intervention here. So for example, thunderstorms, you can't really do an intervention about preventing thunderstorms, right? Like I said, you have to think about the effects that thunderstorms have on people and maybe doing something to minimize the effects of those thunderstorms. But you can't actually prevent thunderstorms, okay? So explain and justify the need for an intervention. And then we also want you to research for that particular problem, what are solutions that other people have come up with? Because water is it's a pretty well-researched topic. And we also saw the report that had been submitted to the district magistrate. And it quotes a number of reports, government publications. I'm sure there's, there are knowledgeable government officials, there's knowledgeable teachers, professors, all kinds of people who you can consult about that. But basically, the idea is you need to look at what kinds of solutions have been tried before, okay? So before you zoom in on one, you need to look at the range of things and where are the limitations. Okay, so this one's good because it does this, but it's not so good because it ignores this part. So you have to look at those things. And finally, you have to develop a design brief. And that is basically your drawing or illustration, right? So it's the very first kind of it's the very first way that you're presenting your thoughts, right? So that's why it's called a brief. Okay. So yes, I mean, ideally, if you show that you've done a lot of research, then obviously that counts for more because it shows you put more work into it. But it's also, it is a first attempt. So you have to be kind to yourself and you have to realize that the first time you try and put together a solution or something, you may need to change it, because after talking to someone knowledgeable, they may say, no, that solution has been tried here and it didn't work because this. Then you think, maybe that isn't a good fit. Let's try something else. And that's a very important part of the process. Okay. So the first part, inquiring and analyzing, is what you're going to do with task number 1. And your final presentation and the way forward to get there, you're actually going to be developing ideas. So you're going to be taking your research and you're going to try and kind of make sense out of it and come up with a solution or an intervention that actually makes sense, something that you can actually suggest or implement in the 10 days that you have before your final presentation. And you can see it's pretty logical. So it says develop design ideas, right? So that's kind of the next step. So from your design brief, you are developing ideas, okay? And then from those ideas, you're kind of trying to narrow it down to one. And that's where you're developing a design specification. So your solution should have this, and this features, right? Because you're trying to, yeah, go ahead, Chavi.
So I think we can talk about the developing ideas on 23rd a little
Sure.
bit in detail.
Sure.
Because anyways, we will be repeating that.
Oh, yes, we will be.
Almost, I think we can spend time on the rubric.
Yes.
A bit
Okay.
more.
Yeah,
I don't want to
thanks
cut it completely short, but because
thanks for that. I think we need more time on the rubric. So let's move on. I think you've got an idea of what I'm talking about, and we will talk to you in more detail about the developing ideas, because that's more about task 3. But you can see that it's about developing your ideas and presenting. Okay, so we are going to use something which we call a rubric, which is a table. Okay, and basically it looks, we try and kind of imagine the level of achievement that we want to see. What are the things we want to see, right? So a complete set of things we want to see would be at the top of the rubric, and then in between, and then the bare minimum, right? So we have kind of thought it out that for task 1, these are the things we want to see. And there's 3 things here that we are going to look at in your task 1. Chavi's already spoken about it, but I'm going to just very briefly repeat that. So the first thing is observation, right? So we want you to actually observe some water sources, and that they can be either natural or human-made, right? And obviously, you're going to choose that water source because it has an issue or a problem that you are aware of, right? You're not going to go to a water source that's, that's in great shape and doesn't need any intervention, because that's just going to waste time, right? The whole purpose of this project is to identify a water source that needs an intervention, that has some problem, that has some issue that you want to do something about, okay, with your team. So you will be looking at, do you identify a water source? Do you indicate where it is in relation to your school or where you live, your housing society, or that part of the city where you live? And very importantly, who use that water source? Okay, who are the users? Then next step is to identify what the problem is, right? And when you remember that you are trying to show what the problem is through art, but it's not an art project, okay? It's basically using your creativity. So yes, it is a drawing or an illustration, but it's not that we are going to reward the really good artists over the ones who just give us a brief sketch. It's what is in that drawing. Does it actually show us, how is the water drawn there? Does it show, if it's a pollution issue, does it show us that there's pollution? Does it show us that the water quality is bad? Does it show us that there's inequitable distribution of water? That some people are getting as much as they need and other people are getting hardly any at all, because that is a huge issue. And scarcity, has a water source that's been around for centuries dried up. How do you show that in a drawing or illustration? Okay, so kind of water source, problem identification, and finally your justification. Why? Why does it need an intervention? What will an intervention do? Okay, and the 2 important things there are, who is it affecting, the problem, and how are they affected? Okay, next. So I just want to explain a little bit about this. I'm not sure if you're familiar with this way of Chavi and I find this easier to do, because then we've written down what we are looking for, right? And we can kind of look at a drawing or an illustration, we can read what you've written, and then we can say, okay, let's start at the bottom and work our way to the top. So there's 4 bands here, all right? That basically, I'm not going to even talk about the 0 band, because that doesn't apply at all. You're all going to do great, I'm sure. So we have a 1-2 band, and then the next slide is going to show you the next couple of levels. So there's basically a 1-2, there's a 3-4 band, there's a 5-6 band, and there's a 7-8 band, okay? And that's the highest level of achievement, all right? And there's 2 things we're looking for here, okay? So in your drawing or your illustration and the 100 words that you write. If you remember, that's optional, but we recommend that you write. So when we start at the bottom, actually, Chavi, maybe we should go all the way to 7, 8 and work our way backwards. So we can give them an idea of this is what we're really looking for. Okay, so this is what we are looking for. All right. So first of all, we're looking for creates a drawing or an illustration that clearly identifies the water source, okay, or your water body, clearly identifies the problem, and it shows evidence that you've actually visited that place. Just in the interest of time, I'll say one very easy way to show evidence that you visited a place is just to include, take a few photographs, print them, small, and you can just paste them onto your drawing or illustration, and that clearly shows us. We assume that you have taken this photograph on that particular day at that particular water source because we trust you to do that. Okay, so you're creating a drawing or illustration, and you can read what it says there. And the second thing is that you are explaining in detail the need for a solution. So you're not just saying, for just an example, you're not just saying the need for an intervention is because people are suffering or people are fighting. Okay, that's not enough, right? You need to explain why, if people are suffering, why are they suffering? You need to go into some detail, right? You need to show us that you've done some research into it. Why are they fighting? Okay. Is it the fact that one group of people is getting all the water they need and another group is getting almost nothing? And what is that based on, right? So it could be a social issue. It could be an issue of social injustice, and that's why you want to do something about it. Okay, so you're explaining in detail the need for a solution affecting the water source, and you're also showing who and how. Okay, and now let's go backwards.
So I just want to add, just
Yes,
as an example, that it could also be who can also be a fish that you know, or a organism that you know.
Yes, doesn't have to be people.
Who can be any of these? Yeah.
Yep. Exactly. Very good point. Because remember, we share our planet with so many others. Aquatic life, so many other kinds of life, and they all have a right to be here with us, right? And the fact is that plants actually evolved and filled up the earth way before we did, millions and millions of years before we arrived on the earth, right? And the same with animals. So they were here before. We in a way are guests in their home, right? And so if you take that logic, then we have no right to disturb them and to pollute their home or to drive them out of their homes, right? They also have rights, just like we do. Okay. Chabi, there's a photo.
Okay, you can see the screen, is it?
Yeah.
I'll try to, I think something happened.
Yeah. Beautiful photo though. There we go.
So you are you able to see or?
No, right now it's not there. It briefly showed up, but now it's gone, and I'm just seeing all the black boxes.
Okay. I think I know why this is. How about
there we go. Yes, yes.
Okay.
There it is. Okay. So working backwards, all right. So 7, 8, that is the way that we're going to look at this is we're going to start from the bottom and work our way up and say, and those little, by the way, those little squares are for us to put tick marks in, right? So we'll go, okay, yes, met this criteria, tick that, okay, move on to the next one, tick that, okay. And depending on whether you meet both or one is why there's a band that says either 5 or 6 or either 7 or 8. Okay, so I think you're getting the idea, right? Let's look at the 5, 6. Okay, so you're creating a drawing or illustration and you're identifying the specific problem, okay, that needs an intervention, right? But you're not doing the rest of it. Okay, you're outlining the need for a solution to a problem, but you're not clearly showing who are affected and how they are affected. All right, so it's more a question of gaps. Okay, it's how many gaps do you leave in your analysis? That will determine how we look at your work. Okay, and this is basically just to help us, all right, figure out like, okay, where do you all stand in relation to each other? And it's not to judge you. It's basically just everyone can be excellent at this. It's not like someone has to be first and someone has to be second. Everyone can be first. Okay, so I just want to make that clear. This is just a way for Chavi and I to look at your work and kind of in a very logical kind of way say, does it have this? Does it have this? And I think this will help you also to understand, okay, what do I actually need to have in my drawing or illustration and my 100 words so that I score really high on this project. Okay, and hopefully this clarifies things for you. But of course, we are totally, both Chavi and I, totally open to questions. If there's any clarifications, any questions you have, please feel free to message us. Okay, and we'll let you know how you can do that. Okay, so then looking back at the 3-4 section, again, you are creating a drawing or an illustration, but you're identifying a generic problem or issue, right, that needs an intervention. So basically, a generic problem means that it's not specific to your area. It could be anywhere in the world. It doesn't really say, it doesn't specify, and you don't show the research to back up what you're saying, so that's what the word generic means. It means general, that doesn't have any specific place that's associated with it. Okay. Second is, you are stating a clear need for a solution, but you're not showing who are affected or how they're affected. Okay. Just scroll back to the slide just before this, Chavi. Okay, and the 1-2 level, you can see, creates an incomplete drawing or illustration. Okay, so if you have a drawing that identifies a water source or water body, okay, but it doesn't say the other things, right, what the problem is, and then that will be at this level. And second thing is, states a need for a solution. Okay, so you're stating that there is a solution needed, but it's a generic water related problem. And also that it's not clear, if we find it confusing or ambiguous, it could mean this or it could mean that, then that will be the 1-2 level. And I just want you to just focus for a minute on the words we call these strands. Okay, so each band, the 1-2 band, the 3-4 band, etc. If we look at strand number 2, here it says states, right? So when you state something, go to the next slide, please, Chavi. As opposed to outline. So in the 5-6, at the 5-6 level, you're outlining. And go to the next slide. You're explaining in detail. Do you see the difference between states, outlines, and explains in detail? So let me give you just a small example. So for example, if I asked you to state, okay, something about this water bottle, to describe this water bottle, if you're stating something, you might say, this is a water bottle. Okay, that's stating something, right? Just one thing. If you're outlining, then you might say, this is a water bottle. It's made out of metal. It holds 1 liter of water. Okay. And so you're going beyond that, just that this is a water bottle, and you're explaining some things about it. Okay, some important points about it. And if you're explaining in detail, then you would say, this is a water bottle that is sold at Decathlon. It's very affordable. It's made of aluminum, so it's very light. And it fits very easily in the side pocket of my backpack. And it doesn't make the water taste funny, but it doesn't keep the water cold or hot. So if you put cold water in it in the morning and you go out in the sun, after a while it'll turn hot. It's not insulated. It's not an insulated bottle. Okay. And it has this really handy cap, so you can drink even if you're like running or something, and you can quickly cap it up, and not a drop of water will spill. So it's a very well designed water bottle. See, now that's explaining in detail. You see the difference? Okay, so I want you to keep that in mind. All right. Go ahead, Chavi, next. Okay, and our next meeting, go ahead, Chavi.
Yeah, so we will share these slides, and I think you'll also probably have this recording. We will meet next on 23rd. I think the plan has been shared with you. It's a Saturday. I think it's a Saturday. You will need to submit and present your task 1. Both Darab and I, we will be reviewing that, and we will be giving you some feedback also, right, Darab? This time we will give some feedback as well.
Right. Yeah, we will. Yeah.
Yeah. And then we will assign you the task 2. So then after 23rd, you will be working on refining task 1, and based on that, you will be working on the task 2. And we will go through not such a lengthy discussion, a shorter one, because I think today we were setting the basics, but a shorter discussion where we will assign the task 2. And I think that's it today. So
perfect.
Questions? Like I said, we will share these slides, so you will have the information that is there and the recording. But if there are any other questions, we are happy to.
Yeah, ma'am, I have one question. Ma'am, as the teams had been made for this, so one team have to make one drawing, or all the team members have to make their specific drawings for this task.
So there will the entire team has to together make one drawing about one issue, about one kind of water, preferably one kind of water, but it has to be teamwork. There is a single output per team. Okay. I will add that in the slide. Yeah, go ahead.
Ma'am, is it necessary to visit any site? Like if we are not able to, then
you choose an issue which is closer to home. Choose an issue in your homes. Choose an issue in your school.
Okay, ma'am.
Right? You choose your site according to what is possible. But if you talk about a river which is very far and you have no idea what the river looks like, it's very little. The point is, there's very little you can actually do unless you actually interact with the waters. Then it doesn't get specific. You will remain generic, and you won't be able to go beyond the 1 and 2 band in terms of getting marks. So choose a close by site.
Okay, ma'am.
And also remember, when we say intervention, we're not talking about building a dam or something, okay? It could be, and I'm kind of getting a little ahead of myself, because we're going to talk to you in detail about types of intervention on the 23rd. But I just do want to mention this to you, because I want you to start thinking in that direction, is that you have 10 days. What can you do that's practical, that's doable? Okay. So for example, if there is a problem, let's just the top of my head. If let's say people are fighting over water, and there are some people who are getting all the water they need and other people who are not, then maybe what your intervention should be is actually just trying to explain to those people what the situation is, and to try and kind of inform them that we feel that it's important as the students in your team that water be distributed equally, because it's in our constitution as part of the right to life, and there's many other laws also relating to it, where basically our government, the part of the government that is responsible for providing water to us, is actually responsible by law to provide us safe, clean drinking water, okay, and enough water for our needs, okay. So maybe it's just about making people aware. Maybe it's just about getting people together to talk about it. It's not just about doing something physical. I don't want to say more than that, but I just want to, because I know that some of you are probably feeling a bit ghabraud about that. So please don't. Okay, in 10 days, what can you do? That is useful, that is relevant, and that is doable, that is practical for you. Okay, a group of 5 middle school students sitting in a city in Udham Singh Nagar. What can you do to make the water situation better? Okay, and remember, there could be many steps involved. So maybe you just concentrate on the first step. Maybe you see 10 steps ahead, but you can't do all 10 of them, right? But at least you can make a start. Okay. All right. I don't want to say any more than that because we've already finished our allotted time, and I know that you all need to get home. You've had a long day at school. So I'll, Chubby, if there's anything more you'd like to add, otherwise we can hand over to our Little Scholars hosts.
Yeah, no, I'm done. And if there are more questions, then whoever has question can stay, and then otherwise the Little Scholars can close the discussion.
Right.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am, very much.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir and ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
It
Thank you
was
so
indeed
much.
an enlightening session. So now, if anybody has any query, you can ask right away. As the session comes to its end, I would extend a sincere gratitude to our dedicated panelists for being our torchbearers.
Thank you, Darab sir and Chavi ma'am. Also, a heartfelt thanks to patrons for joining us and making this session a success. As you all are aware, the next workshop is on 23rd September, 3 to 5 p.m. on meeting the unique needs of water resources. See you all there. Have a great evening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
All.
Your hard work for us.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Thank you, so thank you, ma'am.